Storiers! Find some interesting motion in there. Ooh, that's what we're gonna go see. I'm excited.
Infinity War story breakdown. Here we are.
Here we go. Here we go. I know you're all excited out there. Just about all of America seen this movie by now.
So my heart sank, honestly. The beginning of the story, actually, my heart sank, and then there were certain points throughout the story, it sank, and at the end, I saw it with my 10-year-old, and he was like, is it over? Is that the end?
It was a gutsy cliffhanger.
Kill your darlings. Kill your darlings. Stephen King says it all the time, but he didn't actually, who said it first? It wasn't him.
We'd have to turn to Google for that one. I can do it while I'm driving. I'm very great at
that would be great. That would be.
Let me check it out.
No, man.
Oh, you said it'd be great.
It was a joke.
Well, let's teach everybody out there to be irresponsible.
It's horrible, this idea.
Seriously, I can't remember who said it, but I do think it is a very valid principle of storytelling. Your whole thing about killing your darlings is that you know people had this emotional connection, so that's where you can affect your reader or your viewer the most. You want to make your readers feel something. And so I feel like that is one of the reasons why you always have to be prepared to kill your darling. It doesn't really work in every sense, but for a movie like this, I think it was inevitable. Yeah. Anything else would have been a cheat.
So yeah, so let's talk about that though. So you talked about a little bit why you do it. Did they do it well?
They did an incredible job.
The reason I thought that, what really got me personally in terms of how well they did it, how well they built up to it, was Loki, honestly. To me, that is the epitome of killing your darling well.
A good death is its own reward.
And part of it is because Loki has come from such a long way as a character. Yeah. This is why I think his death was such a phenomenal example of how to do it well and how to build it into characters you would not expect. Because if he would have died in the first Thor, like, nobody would have cared. Everybody would have cheered, actually. He's the villain. That's what happens to villains. We want justice.
But I do think the power of watching somebody go from the bad guy to the hero and having been on that journey, if you've seen all the movies. Now, the only thing is that emotionally affects you because you've seen the build-up. For somebody that's never seen a Marvel movie, they just be like, this guy got killed. And Loki was a fan-favorite character. Loki was like a lot of people's favorite character, I think, in the Marvel. He's one of my mom's favorite
characters. What's interesting is he was not one of my favorite characters, but I did grow to like him more. I think Ragnarok had especially a different side of him. In the whole thing, you see Loki as, in some ways, a conflicted character, and you see that conflict right up till his last breath, basically. As he's walking up to Thanos and he's getting ready to do his little last ditch trickery with the sword behind him, he looks at Thor. I'm actually getting a little choked up talking about it. He talks about who he is, a master of deceit, and he says, son. Yes, that's right, Odin's son of Odin.
No, Odin's son.
Well, Odin's son. Thank you.
I'm not like being a little picky right there.
Odin's son, you are. It just, the weight of it, his arc as a character, the complexity of him as a character, that's part of it too. I mean, they just did a beautiful job with that.
Do you think he was the most effective of all the Kill Your Darlings?
I didn't think he was the most effective. What I thought though was, as far as it was just a great example of Kill Your Darlings. Okay. Like the epitome of a good way to do it in a character that you wouldn't expect. And that's part of it too. It's like, there are certain times in storytelling where, because all stories basically have already been told before, it's hard not to telegraph what's about to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that they did a great job all around with that. But you're saying you thought
Spider-Man. What great acting from out the young Tom Holland in that scene. Mr. Stark.
I love it.
I feel
My
sick.
favorite Spider-Man. I'll say by far.
By
no
far.
comparison.
And no comparison.
And
actually,
people love Tobey Maguire. I don't know. I mean, which is fair. Like, Spider-Man 3 killed it for me. Spider-Man 3 I thought was terrible and just kind of tinted Tobey Maguire's whole his whole run for me personally.
Tobey Maguire couldn't shine Tom Holland's shoes.
What?
Tom Holland is the greatest Spider-Man of all time, by far, by a large metric.
2 thank yous right off the bat.
Storiers!
Thank you so much.
Spider-Man best.
Yes.
Best kill your darling. Why?
Number 1, I almost cried. Number 2, he's Spider-Man. So Spider-Man in pop culture. Spider-Man in pop culture holds a certain role. You know, so Marvel made a big deal of bringing this character back. You only got to see him so far in 2 movies. It's the 3rd one. And just to go ahead for that gut punch and the emotional moment, because Spider-Man ties so much into Tony Stark and his heroic, where he's come from. We start with Tony Stark, who was a pretty selfish guy, to now you got him talking to Gwen Paltrow about them having a kid and already having struck up a mentorship / parental role with young Peter Parker. So the fact that his death ties so much into Tony Stark's growth. So that's why that was probably my favorite kill your darling. It was just it was a gutsy move. You know, I don't think anybody saw that coming.
You'll never, as Tony Stark, you'll never forget that. You'll never forget that moment. You'll never forget your role in actually getting him there.
Yep.
You're the one who told him to go after the wizard, go after Doctor Strange.
I'm Peter, by the way.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, you're using your made-up names. Then I am Spider-Man.
I mean, everything about it, I mean, would lend itself to basically a guilt trip. On a practical level, you never get past that because you know you had a role to play.
One of the things I think was effective
By the
about...
way, my camera skills right now
That's all right.
are not shining.
Storiers! So another reason I think Kill Your Darlings was particularly effective in this movie is because what you got to do, and it works better if you've been on the whole journey through the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but what you get is that you could kill a Black Panther, a Spider-Man, a Doctor Strange. People have held their own movies and got their own fan base. But you actually left most of the core Avengers that really star in the Avengers movie intact. So you got all that emotion without having to kill one of the Avengers so you can wrap it up next time with them still being alive. It was brilliant. You couldn't do this without all those movies. You couldn't have this. You couldn't make Infinity War by itself. It's like a whole season of a TV show in 2.5 hours.
The misting part, but this is part of the balance. When people misting away, it did not have as big of an impact, except for Spider-Man, because they gave him a moment with Tony. Gamora, because she's not one of my favorite characters. I love Zoe Saldana, but her character in Guardians of the Galaxy is just kind of like, Her character is not super compelling to me. We get to see more of her story here, but her interactions with Thanos and her, as you begin to get more into her, that whole scene, I thought they did a great job with that scene. Those are my top 3. Okay. Loki, Spider-Man, and Gamora.
And Gamora.
So anything else, anybody else that you thought like really stood out?
As far as who died or the misting?
Yeah.
No, I actually think the Kill Your Darlings with Scarlet Witch and Vision didn't go very well. So I know something that stood out for that reason. It parallels so much of like Star-Lord and Gamora, even down to the promise to kill me.
It did.
So that might have been intentional on the screenwriter's part.
It did. As we're thinking about putting our own stories together and how to do this, what is the takeaway?
Well, the takeaway I say is look at the reaction to the ending that's out there. Like, people have been affected, people have been angry, people have been very involved with this ending. I watched my cousin do a video leaving the theater, and she was like, I'm mad, just mad, you know what I'm saying? She's like, they killed everybody, I can't believe it, why did they do this? I was like, man, you gonna put that on Facebook Live? I hope you give a spoiler warning. You write it, it's like Thursday night. That right there proves why you have to kill your darlings. You want that reaction from your audience. So what you don't want as a writer, I think, is for people to just think your work and everything's just, okay. You want somebody to really love your stuff, or like, I just hate it so much. Why? Another thing is, I think it's good for you as a writer. So now as a writer, you too can become attached to your characters. and you cannot be willing to do what you need to do for your character to have the best moment.
I think that's how you know if it works too. Part of how you know if it works. If there are things that happen to my characters that like I'm starting to get choked up for, and I'm looking for a box of Kleenex.
Somewhere deep down in my heart.
Like that's a good thing. And then in your readers too, the people that you let test it out, your beta readers, you know, if their response is similar, if they're getting choked up, if they're getting mad, those kind of things, that means you're doing something right. Yep.
So that was our first story breakdown episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I got unexpectedly emotional, a lot of crying, a lot of tears in there. Leave a comment below and tell us some of your favorite kill your darlings moments from some of your favorite stories.
And from this movie. Join us next Friday when we do it again. Infinity War, we're going to take a deeper dive into Thanos as a villain and potentially the best villain ever.
Maybe, possibly. We'll see. Or am I supposed to do that part? Oh wait. Comments below. Links below. Like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Because sharing
is caring.
and people won't know how much you care.
Until they see how much you share.